What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe.
T-Bob and Jake will be back on Monday, and when they do get back, we will recap this Saints-Panthers matchup inside of the Superdome on Sunday. The Saints 5-7 on the year, still right in the thick of things of the NFC South. It'll probably be that way for the rest of the year. And the Panthers come in hobbling just a little bit. Carolina 1-10. They already fired their head coach, who was in his first season, and their rookie number one quarterback, or Bryce Young, who was the number one overall pick in this past draft, really struggling, not just on the field with production, but it looks like with his confidence as well. And this is a matchup that's been pretty close the last couple of years when it probably should not have been. A very unstable organization. We know David Tepper has already ran through 3 coaches since he's gotten there, including Ron Rivera, who is the most successful coach in the history of that franchise. But this has still been a competitive series. They split it in 2021. They split it against last year. The last meeting was this season. The Saints won 20-17, but that game was way too close for my liking. And the Saints 2-0 start seems like a lifetime ago. But the Panthers still bring a couple of challenges coming into this game. They still have some guys on defense. And matter of fact, they still rank 7th in the NFL in total defense. They are 23rd against the run, so maybe the Saints could take advantage there, but still 4th in the NFL against the pass. That is a stat that honestly kind of jumped off the page to me. I didn't know Carolina was that good against the pass this season, but they're facing a very, very struggling Saints offense. And the Saints defensively really, really, really need to get off to a fast start in this game. That's something they have not been able to do all season. Like Musso, you cut a lot of Dennis Allen sound. I know you remember 3 weeks ago when he was...
Unfortunately.
Exactly. You remember maybe like 3 weeks or like a month ago. It might have been after the Jacksonville game. Dennis Allen was like, we need to pretend it's halftime at the start of games defensively. But time and time again, we see opening drive touchdowns. We see the Saints look sluggish on Dennis Allen's side of the ball, defense, not even talking about offense, and that's a trend that needs to improve. Hopefully it does against this hapless Carolina team.
So, you know what I think about that? I think one of the reasons the Saints defense is struggling and starting slow and just things of that nature. I mean, you could point to a lot of things. They're aging in a lot of their most important positions. I mean, Cam Jordan, love him. He's getting up there. DeMario Davis, love him. He's getting up there. Tyrann Mathieu, love him. He's getting up there. And I mean, look, you could go on and on. I just picked those 3. They're 3 of the biggest 3. But I'll tell you this. I think it's overload for Dennis Allen. I think he's trying to do too much. I think he's got too much on his plate. I think it's that simple. You've seen it in multiple other cases at times. I mean, there's no other explanation outside of, again, potentially aging issues and things of that nature. But when they're doing the same exact thing that they have been, when he's running the defense the same way he has been, it points to other things going wrong. When you're the head coach and calling a defense and in charge of that defense still, there's a lot more that goes into that than you just being the defensive coordinator, and I think there's a little too much on his plate with all of it together.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, Mario. He's not shown the ability to delegate, and that's a lot what you have to do as a head coach. Like Musso was saying, he has too much on his plate. If he could just worry about the defensive side of the football, he's a great defensive coach. We saw him be a good coordinator here. You could tell that he's not doing that. I mean, he's trying to dip his hand in the offense, which is a big reason why they're struggling. I mean, obviously, Pete Carmichael's not great either, but Dennis Allen right now seems like he's trying to spread himself way too thin. If he could just focus on the defensive side of the football and at least get one part of your team elite. I mean, they were elite at the beginning of the year. Even they've gotten worse. There's probably no helping the offense at this point in the season. I mean, let's just accept that and move on. But your defense is what was keeping you in ball games. Now they're getting off to a slow start as well. If you could just focus on the defensive side of the ball, that'll help this team a lot more.
And the injuries have added up. The Saints had really good injury luck to start the season, and I knew it with Lattimore and Thomas specifically. Like having those guys on the field, it just hadn't happened that much the last few years, and the Saints did not utilize it at all. And Marshawn Lattimore, as good as he is, I know we appreciate him, but it still feels like he's a little underrated, like around league circles, because you see the drop-off. Guys that had been playing great, looking at you, Alontae Taylor, are not playing at the same level since Marshawn Lattimore went down, and you're not going to have him in this game, unfortunately, and that injury list continuing to grow at kind of the worst time. DMP for Rashid Shaheed yesterday again. Kendre Miller also didn't practice, according to the latest injury report. You did have Cam Jordan, but it was in a limited fashion. He played, 17 snaps the last game. We'll see if he plays a little bit more this time around. And Taysom Hill and Isaiah Foskey both did not practice. Taysom Hill, I feel like, is the only reason a lot of people are still going to these games in the Superdome. If he can't go, that's a big problem for the New Orleans Saints. But offensively, unfortunately, I expect them to continue to struggle. Whatever the under is in this game, I would probably go with that from a betting standpoint. But if the Saints are going to turn this season around, it's going to be unexciting. You're playing the Panthers and the Giants the next couple of weeks. Fans won't get too pumped up. But for that locker room to get pumped up again, if they're going to turn this season around, the defense needs to eat against a really bad Carolina team, against a rookie quarterback that's struggling right now. And it hurts to not have Marshawn, but this is really an opportunity for the Saints defense to have some success. And if they can't against this team, then that's a big, big cause for concern.
Yeah, the issue that the Carolina Panthers are going to have on the opposite side, we don't know what's going to happen with Adam Thielen. Like, he didn't practice yesterday. They called it non-injury rest day, but he was banged up in the last game. I understand he hasn't been elite this year, but he has 800 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He's the best player on their offense. I mean, he's basically been their only consistent receiving threat all year long. And since he's drawing so much attention now, that's opened things up a little bit for a young guy like a Jonathan Mingo. If Adam Thielen can't go, that's going to help the Saints DBs a lot, because Bryce Young, while he hasn't been good at all, he does have nice chemistry with Adam Thielen. He goes to him early, he goes to him often. I think Thielen's leaning towards playing. That's the word right now, but it's still very much up in the air, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to. Thielen's been a Saints killer, even with Lattimore on him. I actually picked him up on my fantasy team. I told you about that. If T-Bob was here, he'd be cursing me because we don't talk about our fantasy teams. But all the receivers there besides him have kind of been underwhelming. And I don't know if y'all have kept up with this, but a lot of Panthers fans are really upset at our guy, DJ Shark, who's also over there, has had kind of an underwhelming season himself. But in a media availability after their last game, by the way, DJ Shark, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Panthers this season, was talking about Bryce Young and a 4th down play. And basically, Bryce Young thought that the opponent was in cover 0. They were not in cover 0, according to DJ Shark. He checked to a quick pass, like a behind the line of scrimmage pass to DJ. He got tackled immediately for no gain, turnover on downs, no win, right? For the Panthers, they lose the game. And after the game, DJ Sharp basically says, they were not in cover 0. He kind of threw his rookie quarterback under the bus. And I'm not trying to get on DJ Shark. The point I'm trying to make is there's just a lot of dysfunction, a lot of finger pointing within that organization right now. Diana Rossini had a really good write-up on The Athletic where she kind of compared it to the Hunger Games. You had Frank Reich not really in good communication with his coaches. You had assistants texting the owner behind his back. And all this is a terrible environment for a rookie quarterback, right? And Bryce Young, I know you weren't very high on him coming in, Taylor. He deserves a lot of flack himself, but it's not a good environment for him to be in, especially as a rookie, especially when you have these massive expectations. Like, they traded DJ Moore to get you. That was their best player throughout the David Tepper era by far, and it's not living up to expectations. You combine that with what's going on organizationally, that's just a really, really bad environment. But somehow I feel like going to the Superdome is like a get right for everybody right now.
It could be. Look, I have made my opinion on Bryce Young very well known on the show. Anybody who listens to it knows that I am not a Bryce Young fan at all. I thought the Carolina Panthers made a huge mistake taking him number 1 overall, but the Panthers have not done him any favors. Bryce Young's not a drop-back passer. That's never been what he is. He's one of those guys more like a Caleb Williams or Mahomes at times, although Mahomes is great at everything. But he's a guy that you need to get out on the move that's really good at improv, and they're not asking him to do that. They put him under center a lot, which is something that he's not comfortable with. He never did it at Alabama. They're trying to make him that traditional pro-style drop-back passer. That's just not who he is. So while I don't think Bryce Young is going to be a very good NFL quarterback, I could be very wrong on that. He could improve. He's not in the greatest situation either. And I know people are going to say, well, neither is C.J. Stroud, and C.J. Stroud has his team on the brink of the playoffs. First off, I think Stroud's better than Bryce Young, but at least that team is putting him in position to succeed. They are playing to C.J. Stroud's strengths. I don't think the Panthers are doing that at all with Bryce Young.
What say you, Musso? Or what do you think of Bryce Young? And I don't know how high you are coming on him or not. Do you put more blame on him or more, I guess, on the organization?
I mean, I think it's too early to really tell. He hasn't played a full season yet in the NFL. So, I mean, I'm not going to, bury the guy's career yet.
Fair.
The Panthers aren't a good organization. I will say this, it's not a good spot for Bryce Young right now, and it's not going to get any better right now. I mean, they fired 2 coaches in 2 years. Who knows what they're going to do? I don't think they're really going to have their pick like they want. The attractiveness of that job is definitely a fair question to ask right now, especially given your owner, not just in Carolina, but he fires a lot of people who, on a soccer team that he owns as well. So so I mean that's part of that too. I think Bryce Young has what you see from him is normally what you see from a rookie quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it takes a while. I think guys like a Joe Burrow or C.J. Stroud are outliers in what they've been able to do. Even an Andrew Luck outlier in what they've been able to do. So I mean, give him more time. It's been you can't even put lipstick on the pig that has been the season for Carolina this year. It's just it's been awful in just about every phase. So the one thing that they have been able to do well a little bit is run the football at times. I mean, I know in the first game against the Saints they had 5 yards per carry on the ground, so that's going to be something the Saints need to keep an eye on this week. But look, you're thin on the defensive line, you're thin in the secondary. So I mean, I'm not really ready to just scribble a W next to the Saints facing a 1-11 team, which I'll tell you gives me a lot of pause.
I'm with you, and I wouldn't pick them to cover in this game either. I'm looking at them right now, 5.5-point favorites. That's kind of a lot of points for a team that has not covered one time inside of the Superdome this season.
And that tells you everything you need to know, right? They're facing a 1-11 team at home. They're not even favored by a touchdown.
Yeah, that's nuts, and I'm sure it's going to be a sleepy environment in the Superdome, but it's a game the Saints need to win. If they don't, things can get really interesting, especially for people like us that had to talk about this kind of thing, because if the Saints lose, you might see some ramifications. You might see some changes down there on airline drives.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.